But I think the development of full artificial intelligence would spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
I don't know whether rockets or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. They were too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1, 1,
self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Well, good evening, and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting, and of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, yeah, I know. You got too much AI, right? No AI shows for a minute. I don't know. Look, there's a lot going on, and it's... I think if you frame it in a very poor way, it seems like the end is always nigh. And I try very hard not to be that guy. It's just sometimes the world gets you down, and all this Epstein stuff, and just all the the true conspiracy theories that are coming true. It's it breaks my heart. It's hard to handle all that deep, really dark stuff. So I don't like to touch it just because it makes me feel awful, thinking how deep and dark the world really is. So instead, as you know, I try and do this a different way. I try and do this and look at the world a little bit with rose-colored goggles, as they say, but not with blinders. Just, let's talk about fun ideas instead of just doom and gloom all the damn time. Yeah. Anyway, that's that. That's where we start tonight. None of that stuff. We'll do this other stuff instead, which, if you have been following on the Discord, I dropped this article a couple days ago, and I think it's fascinating. I think whether you want to call this propaganda or whether you want to call this some other level of, I don't know, just people making stuff up, or if you want to call any level of this real, I think it's a hugely fascinating story that's coming out of, again, one of the usual suspects in the UFO community, which would be George Knapp. And George Knapp in particular, like I said, I don't have anything against the guy. I know he takes a lot of heat from some of the reporting he does and some of the other things, but anyway, me, my style is not to come on here and call people liars or, call people out or whatever that is. Instead, let's talk about the ideas. Let's talk about the things that they're suggesting are true and real, or, maybe not real, but kind of real. Anyway, I think it's real because I'll tell you why. Because this is about UFOs and it's about propaganda. Yeah, right down my alley. And certainly there's a lot of real aspects to it right there. But anyway, stop rambling, Mike. Let's talk about this. So this is from the New York Post, and maybe you guys saw this. This is from just a couple days ago, or yesterday actually, is when this hit. And the headline is UFO intel documents stolen out of Russia reveal decade-long probes into alien encounters and abductions. Okay. And I was like, wow, crap, that seems mighty interesting, doesn't it? And so that's what we're talking about tonight. We're gonna just go straight Cold War, Russia, UFO documents, and George Knapp. Now, the thing is this, right? As usual, I want to hear from you guys as part of these conversations. We are taking your calls at 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Now, the bizarre part, well, there's a lot of bizarre parts. And by the way, all these links will be in the description down below. So if you want to follow up on me and go read this with your own eyeballs, I recommend you do, because, we're just talking about it together as a group. But the actual supposed files that were smuggled out are down here in the actually linked. You can read this. It's like a full, was it almost a 90-page document? Yeah, 70 pages. Sorry. It's long, and it's again fascinating. I went through some of it, not all of it, but the wild part is that there's some unbelievable things in here, like jellyfish UFOs, like giants, all manner of wild things you would expect from a modern UFO tale with the disclosure movement hot and heavy. Okay, so let me read just a little bit from the article here, and we'll kind of keep on trucking with that regard and talk to you about it. We got James in with us tonight, so we'll talk to James momentarily here. Hang tight, my friend. But after that headline, it goes like this. Landmark UFO documents smuggled out of Russia 30 years ago. I think that's a key point. And just publicly revealed show the Soviets investigated thousands of reports of extraterrestrial craft and encounters with aliens. Okay, that's interesting. Legendary reporter George Knapp, age 73, quietly released on January 16th documents he smuggled out of Russia in 1993 under the nose of the KGB after the fall of the USSR in 1991. Okay, now, when I first heard that part, I was like, doesn't this sound like UFO spy v spy or whatever, right? Like this suddenly takes on a new light when it's like, okay, so everybody knows George Knapp from the Bob Lazar, breaking the Bob Lazar story, right? And that whole tale. And, he's been very active, maybe even the grand poobah in terms of UFO reporting for the better part of 40 years now. And again, whether you respect his work or not, it doesn't matter to me. I think more importantly is what we're looking at in particular. And I'm going to read this. The translated documents revealed the shocking extent to which the USSR and the post-Soviet Russian Federation probed the persistent phenomenon, despite the communist government officially deeming UFOs a concoction of warmongering American imperialists in 1953. Okay. The USSR commissioned several studies of UFOs, beginning with a program called Network AN, another that was a program in 1979, continuing with Galaxy MD from 1981 to 1985, and Pluton 7 in 1989 and 1990. Don't forget, George Knapp and Bob Lazar were about 1989, right? That's when that story initially hit, maybe a year earlier, something to that degree. However, okay, continuing with Thread 3 in 1989 and 1990. Okay, anyway, so, but they've got pictures in here, like an actual a photo negative of the jellyfish UFO that was witnessed by hundreds on February 13th, 1989, above the city of Nalchik, Nalchik. Pardon my Russian. I don't speak any other language besides English, so you'll have to pardon my Russian tonight. But maybe not my French, but you get it. Like, this is what we're looking at here, and this is what we're talking about. And basically, look, the questions as usual for you guys is, how much of this do we believe? Now, clearly, during the Cold War, there was a lot of this misinformation stuff going back and forth. There was a whole lot of, remember Moscovium and the Area 51. What was it called? What was that? It'll come to me in a second. But basically, the secret fuel that was the UFO fuel that was supposedly used as a bait for the Russians to spend a bunch of money trying to find this. Yes, thank you. Element 115. Thank you, James. That's exactly what it is. So Element 115 was this sort of super secret, according to Bob Lazar, used at Area 51 to fuel these exotic UFOs, the craft, right? Okay. So there's a whole bit with that. We can talk about that as we go tonight. But basically, the question is very simple. How much of this do you believe? And again, not calling George Knapp a liar. That's not what I do. That's not why I'm here. Let's look at the ideas. Let's look at the documents. We'll talk about some of the stories that are in it, including that jellyfish UFO. This one's got giants in it. Yeah, this one's got all kinds of wild tales, which is right down our alley, isn't it? And so, as usual, no truths to be found here, just ideas, just questions, just looking at the world in a slightly different way and parsing the propaganda and recognizing that we're surrounded by it all the time. That's it. That's what it means to be a troubled mind in 2026, and we continue with the legacy from years in the past. But anyway, once again, love to hear your thoughts on this. If you have a take, 702-957-1037, click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. But what we're going to do in the meantime is get a quick word from our sponsor. In this case, that will be, I believe, where's my buttons here? We'll go with this one. We'll go with, oh, goodness gracious. Where are my buttons all messed up? Okay, we'll go with Human Inspiration. Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. This is the one I was looking for. Don't go anywhere. See you in exactly 1 minute. We got James coming up and your calls as well. Be right back. In a world increasingly shaped by AI, human inspiration remains the beating heart of creativity. Alien Skin by Tremble, a hauntingly beautiful piano ballad, reminds us that while algorithms can mimic art, the raw, unfiltered emotions of human experience are irreplaceable. So here I sit, locked in my room again. Written and composed by Jesse Ian in collaboration with Todd Smith, this progressive masterpiece delves into the depths of internalized grief and the silent toll of artistic compromise. As AI reshapes our reality, Alien Skin stands as a testament to the timeless power of human emotion and the complex beauty that only true artists can evoke. Experience the haunting beauty of Alien Skin by Tremble and support human inspiration. Available now on iTunes. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Let us continue, shall we? Okay, so I'm calling this tonight, for obvious reasons, the Soviet X-Files, Abductions, Giants, and State Secrets. And clearly, one of the more important parts of this to me is not the aliens. Well, I mean, aliens are important if they're here, or if they're not, you tell me. But the state secrets part and the misinformation and all the things we've talked about in the past certainly come to bear in this conversation. Because, again, George Knapp, the grand poobah of UFOville in the modern day, age 73, a very respected reporter, all those things, this guy supposedly smuggled out from Russia these secret documents and just released them to the public and supposedly to Congress as well. Like I said, it's an interesting read. I do encourage you to go through it and kind of dig through this stuff and find out, well, what it's about. It's a little bit all over the place, but it's also some particular instances, and we'll get to those momentarily. But again, love to hear your thoughts if you want to be part of the conversation. What is your first initial opinion if you heard about this previously, or if you're just hearing about this now? When you hear 30 years ago, smuggled out of Russia just after the fall of the former Soviet Union, the USSR, and now we're learning about these things now. Again, if it's me, and I'm speaking for myself, of course, it makes my tinfoil tingle. 30 years is a long time to sit on documents like that you believe are real. Okay? So I don't know. Maybe there's more to that story that I don't know. But anyway, how do you guys feel about it? One more time, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. Thanks for being patient, my man. James Salcido of Salcido Paranormal. How are you? Go right ahead, sir. What's on your mind?
I'm okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. Go right ahead.
Good. Yeah. This is a fascinating topic. It's funny because I've seen posts and I saw the article you posted about this, but I have not had a chance to dig into it at all. Also, 70 pages, that's a lot to read. So even if I had started, I don't think I would have made it through all of that between a couple of days ago and now. But, the fascinating thing about this to me is, and I'm sure other people may have heard this as well, I've heard of these files that Knapp got from Russia. I've heard this mentioned on different TV shows over several years. So it is something that supposedly it didn't just come from nowhere, is what I'm trying to say, is this claim of these files didn't just happen just now. It's just now that they're being released. So, but I find that possibly that indicates that maybe they are real, or that there's something to them. Just in the fact that it's not like a something that is just coming out now altogether. It is something that was already Knapp already had, but now he's releasing them. So that, to me, I wonder about that and why the timing of that and how that works and what will come of that.
Yeah, and again, we're talking 30 years ago. We're talking from the collapse of the USSR, the old Soviet Union, and so you got to wonder how much of that stuff is even verifiable at this point. So at some point, you know, things just become folklore and mythology. They become sort of a tall tale that somebody said forever ago type of stuff. This is the way we treat mythology and folklore in the modern day anyway. So I don't know, like I said, that's why my tinfoil kind of tingled when I heard 30 years ago, smuggled out of Russia. It sounds like the beginning of a spy movie, like the UFO spy game or something, you know? So that part to me immediately got me wondering, okay, what the hell is this? But then I was digging into it a little bit and seeing some of the stories, and there's some wild stuff in there. So I'm glad you've got context on that he's mentioned this in the past. They just weren't released in their entirety until recently. This past, I think, late January is when this actually got released publicly and to Congress. So I appreciate that context. What else you got on this? How much do you know about these actual documents, other than sort of the stuff I've said and sort of the kind of whispers you've heard in the UFO community otherwise?
Yeah, that's about it. I've probably heard of things over the years, like I said, different TV shows, but nothing is really coming to mind now. The jellyfish alien aspect to me is fascinating because I feel like I've heard similar accounts from people around the U.S. and other parts of the world that have seen similar things, and so that's always, I think that to me that indicates there might be something there. I had no idea about the giant aspect of any of this, but you know, when it comes to all these things, there's always this. There's if you look into anything anomalous, paranormal, you'll find reports from soldiers around the world, either on their own land or in other places, that have anomalous experiences. And so I'm just wondering here, you know, how much of these files are that, and how much is from the civilian population in that part of the world at that time.
Yeah, it's this stuff, again, as usual, it's complicated because verifying that stuff is difficult. But then, of course, as we know, a lot of this, the quote UFO stuff has been weaponized, maybe not even necessarily by the government, but certainly by bad faith actors in terms of clicks and getting paydays and things like that, right? And I've always been skeptical of the things I read anywhere. Basically, I assume everybody's got an agenda and a kind of framing a particular idea a particular way. And so to me, when I read something, I'm trying to find out what that might be. And sometimes it's very obvious and sometimes it's not. And that becomes the weird part of this, because how do you corroborate any of this? And then not only that, the spy v spy game in UFOville, which we've talked about a lot. Like it's like there's probably more spooks in the UFO space than there is in any other thing other than direct politics. So it does make me wonder what the hell is actually going on. But tons of stuff to get to as usual. What else you got on this or anything else? And we'll get to some of these stories and kind of fill in some of the gaps on what these is actually in these documents.
Yeah, there's at least a whole book on the topic of probably many books on the topic of disinformation from different parts of the government intelligence communities, all those areas regarding UFOs, using them as cover for other things. This is just books and articles and things I've heard about that talk about this possibility. So that's, I think, is it's part of what makes all this very tricky to me, because it's funny because how you described yourself, you're always looking for verification or sort of wondering what's behind it, and I'm sort of, because of my experiences, I've always been on the sort of the opposite end of things, where I'm like, wow, that's a fascinating experience. I wonder how many other people have that experience elsewhere. So it's kind of been, maybe that's partly why we work so well together when we talk, is we kind of come from different angles of things at times. But yeah, I'm curious to know what the files talk about and what parallels there are with experiences people have had here and elsewhere. Because, like I said, I've heard of the whole jellyfish thing. I mean, I've even heard of the whole giant thing, sightings of giants or giant-sized figures that appear and vanish as well. So here in the U.S., so that's looking forward to the actual stories about experiences as usual.
Yeah, great stuff. I appreciate it. Again, you're welcome to stay there, as you know. James is going to be here with us tonight, sitting in, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts as well. And the thing, when I was kind of going over this information and reading the article and just kind of looking at what information we had to talk about regarding this stuff, not just George Knapp, but this jellyfish UFO. This is back from 1989 in Russia somewhere. But the thing becomes that this isn't the first time we've heard of this. Like, there was a very direct reference by one Jeremy Corbell that talked about a jellyfish UFO a long time ago. He kind of teased it. He says, I've seen the footage. We have the footage. We can't release it yet for whatever reason, yada, yada. And he even, you know, I think he was on Joe Rogan when he said this, or he was on some kind of, again, very amplified platform when he was talking about this and saying that there was a jellyfish UFO flying somewhere in the Middle East, and then it took off, dipped into the water, and then shot out of the water, gone. Like it went at the light speed or something. It was gone so fast that you couldn't even track it. And then, you know, somebody asked in the follow-up, well, that's amazing. Can we see that? And the answer was no. I mean, we can't release it, whatever. And then it turns out eventually that was released, and all the most fascinating parts that he described aren't even there. And, you know, jellyfish kind of gives the illusion or the idea of tentacles, kind of, you know, this type of thing floating through the air or whatever. You didn't even see that. I mean, it kind of looked like some people even called it like me included, said, well, it kind of looks like bird poo on a lens because it's not moving whatsoever. So I don't know. There's something very weird about it, but we didn't get to see it as described. And then when we did see it, it was nothing like described. So this type of thing, again, goes back to 1989 above the city of Nalchik from these actual documents. And the jellyfish UFO is not new. I mean, back to the flying saucers of Kenneth Arnold and that whole bit we've talked about in the past quite a lot. But in this particular place, interestingly, this is a when you hear jellyfish UFO, at least when people do that have been sort of paying attention to this space for a while, you may just go, oh yeah, you know, that seems to be a common thing. And out there, to the chat, to everybody at listening as well, why do you think that is? Why do you think jellyfish UFO is, I don't know, maybe stepping on the gas as far as the zeitgeist, as far as what people recognize as UAP or UFOs? No, it's an interesting thing. So we'll get to that exact tale in just a minute here. But as usual, like I said, love to hear your thoughts. Let's see a little bit more from the article. What else is here? So here's the actual breakdowns of some of this stuff. So just to tease you a little bit. So this jellyfish UFO was supposedly 450 feet wide. There's another one where this guy says he was in 1975 basically abducted by aliens and taken aboard a craft. Where have we heard that before? Another one where Earthlings came into contact with a race of giant aliens. Yeah, giant aliens. There's a teaser. We'll read these in full, or at least fill in some of the blanks on what they mean. But as usual, to me, like I said, look, I try my very best not to just believe anything. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it in a sort of fractal space of, well, here's all the information. Here's what we do know. Let's pick and choose and kind of put these narratives together, how we might build them if we were trying to convince somebody of something, right? So I don't have a dog in the fight in that regard. And this to me is highly fascinating, but also highly dubious. Both things can be true at the same time. But as usual, look, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think. That's the point. So yeah, we're here with James tonight. James Salcedo, of course, of Salcedo Paranormal. Please give him a follow on all the places. You know where to do that. troubledminds.org/friends. Scroll down a little bit and you'll find James there, or just search it yourself. Salcedo Paranormal, SALSIDO Paranormal.com. It'll take you straight to his website, and please give him a follow. And that's where we're at. Again, love to hear your thoughts on this. I know this has gone around the UFO community, and, you know, many of you people pay attention to that space. Many of you don't, and that's okay too, because as usual, looking at these ideas together, sort of outside of the space of, oops, that's the wrong button, outside of the space of, let's say, echo chambers is what it's all about. So how much do you think is real here? How much is suspect? And what do you know about this? Does it seem suspicious to you that after 30 years, these documents are surfacing and even being handed over to Congress? Now, I've got the alternative take here coming up momentarily, but of course, with all the rest of the juicy details of the documents, again, links are in the description if you want to read them yourselves. I do encourage you to, but I'd love to hear you talk about it and chop up the ideas with us tonight. 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More after the break. We got more from James and your calls as well. Catch you in just one moment. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. Tonight, the Soviet X-Files, smuggled secrets, jellyfish craft, abductions, and pink-eyed aliens from the Cold War archives. Did a hardline materialist regime quietly admit it had no idea what was in its own skies? Are these cases proof of non-human contact, a paranormal psyop, or something we do not even have language for yet? And that's more down my angle of things, maybe as yet to be determined, especially when we're talking about anomalous things or anomalous things in the sky. Now, in particular, welcome back, James. I'll get you a take in just a second here if you got anything to add. I want to go through some of this because, like I said, everything's linked in the description down below, including the documents directly. But I'll just go with the recaps here from the New York Post article. Makes it super easy. But here you go. So here's the jellyfish one. So on February 13th, 1989, hundreds of people, okay, not just a one-off here, not just one person that saw something, hundreds of people witnessed a massive 450-foot wide jellyfish-shaped UFO flying 300 feet above the ground in the city of Nalchik, Nalchik, between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. A massive red light was seen descending over the city, then splitting it into equidistant green lights. After 10 minutes, the lights merged and descended into the sky. 90 minutes later, the massive UFO descended on the city with a smaller, more agile craft also swarming before disappearing into the night sky. Among the witnesses were military members, local airport staff, and astronomers. So that in particular sounds familiar, right? It sounds very familiar, even including the jellyfish-shaped thing. I think the notable thing that stands out to me is 450 feet wide. That is massive. You know how big a baseball field is, right? 300 feet down the line, 400 feet to center field. 450 foot wide. Like, this thing is massive, like as big as an entire baseball field. So you got to wonder, like, what the hell is going on with this? And once again, if this is real, as usual, look, I don't know, but if it is real, what kind of thing could actually be 450 feet in the sky? Not only that, but then beyond that, have hundreds of witnesses, and then we just go, whatever, and then put it in an archive and, put it in some desk drawer somewhere and never think about it again until George Knapp shows up to smuggle it out of the USSR? Does any of that make sense? Now, of course not to a materialist. They're like, that's nonsense, Mike. It's all propaganda. Cool. I get that. But what if it's not? Okay, as usual, this is what I call the if cliff. Let's go deep on the ask enough. Well, if this, if that, what could this be? And that really becomes my question tonight. There's a ton of things to get to because, like I said, these documents are really weird, 70 pages deep of all manner of weird stuff. But we'll start with that. We'll start with this massive jellyfish UFO, 450 feet wide, and breaking into smaller parts and then descending on the city in this other weird space. I don't know. How does that make you feel, James? 450 feet, the size of an entire baseball field, basically, hovering over the city, hundreds of witnesses. Suddenly, if that's real, it changes the entire trajectory of just a UFO sighting, doesn't it? Welcome back, my man.
Yeah, it reminds me, of course, of the sighting here in the U.S. Called the Phoenix Lights, in a way. These multiple massive crafts. I can't remember all the details of that one, but that sighting in Russia there in that city, I've heard of not so much the massive jellyfish, but I have heard of massive objects or craft being seen above places that they're as big as a football field. And so that to me is fascinating. That size, it's not as common, I don't think, overall compared to other sightings, but it is. I've heard a few examples of it. The breaking up of the object into smaller objects is always fascinating to me too, because I've heard of the jellyfish phenomenon, but I feel like when I've heard it in other places or from other experiences, it's usually smaller. So now I'm just wondering here, is this sort of the larger version of that? And then are other people around the world at different times seeing parts of that massive craft or something like it? Or are they all connected or are they not? And when they're seeing the smaller ones, are those, again, part of something larger that can be put together and taken apart again? So that sighting is really fascinating to me. And so, yeah, I do wonder about the the files and all that, and I think there's always, I think experiences are often taken and used for propaganda in a lot of cases, and even in some cases, details are taken out or other details added to fit the propaganda that any given organization or country wants to put out there. And that is the tricky part about looking into these things, is trying to separate the actual experiences, reports of experiences, from what narratives that people in power want us to think about.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're once again have hundreds of witnesses as part of this, it does make you wonder how much more information they have that kind of didn't get smuggled out in just this one document. That becomes really the interesting part. And I want to point this out too, while we're still kind of in the Russian X-Files bit, that one Jason Colavito, I know, boo hiss to the people that are like, UFO believers. He's like sort of a person non grata in that space because he's kind of a debunker. But he reports this, and I want to again mention this because this is important as part of this discussion. He says this, and it's very short. It's on his blog, jasoncolavito.com. For the past 30 years, Las Vegas TV reporter and UFO advocate George Knapp has teased a cache of Russian KGB UFO files that he claims to have removed from the country in 1993. He has told different stories about obtaining Russian files. In 1993, Knapp, and in 1994, ABC News Primetime Live both claimed to have purchased the files from the fall of the Soviet Union from former KGB operative Boris Sokolov. Okay, so I guess we have a name attached to this. That's interesting. More recently, he claimed to have commandeered the newly posted files, which may or may not have been from the same original set. He says the files previously made public covered 1978 to 1988, while the new set also covers 89 to 93. So this guy going back to the depths of when this was originally mentioned, and then kind of parsing together, whether this is true or not. Again, like, he's made up his mind. I have not, because this type of stuff is fascinating as hell. And I do know there's a ton of spy game action going on in terms of the UFO space, spooks, as I said earlier. But in this particular actual narrative, well, it seems like he did. He commandeered them, bought them, smuggled them, whatever, from Russia entirely. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. So he says, last month, he quietly released the files online on his local news channel's website, leading to a glowing report in the New York Post this weekend. However, according to New York Post reporter Stephen Greenstreet, who did, I know another boo, did not who did not participate in writing Post's Knapp article, the New York Post, a senior source at the Pentagon confirmed that the documents are part of a known Russian disinformation campaign, and that Congress received a classified briefing on the documents and their Russian disinformation. Anyway, naturally, Knapp's supporters, including Corbell and all the guys, are like, no, boo, that's wrong, and that's not verified, or whatever it is. Look, I don't know what the arguments are, but I do want to point out that somebody very clearly, again, not just these couple of people, but there's also sort of a seed or a thread going back to the where these files came from, the actual beginning of this sort of narrative and the documents themselves. So again, you know me, like I said, my tinfoil tingles when I start to think about this stuff, but the jellyfish stuff, the jellyfish UFO, hundreds of feet wide, hundreds of witnesses, like suddenly, right, if that's real, that certainly becomes a open your eyes moment. But beyond that, like I said, there's definitely UFO elements to this. And I know, James, you're familiar with, and I'm not getting you to crap on people or comment on people's characters or anything like that. I know you're familiar with Jason Colavito and Stephen Greenstreet, but that's the type of stuff they do all the time. Just like you would say, that's the type of stuff George Knapp does all the time. In the counter argument, you have these other guys. Look, I don't pick a side in this stuff, but does it surprise you to hear that, somebody has already debunked this as Russian disinformation as part of the larger narrative?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. And, even if, I can't say that they're wrong on that, but that doesn't mean that there can't be other experiences that are similar to that. Who knows with all these if anything out there, I'm sure there is stuff, where are the ideas for this disinfo coming from? In other words, if these files are disinfo, where did someone get the idea of a giant alien jellyfish ship? Where do they come from? And I always wonder, do these things come from people who have heard of similar experiences and then they just exaggerate them or add details to them and you know, and it gets put out there. It could be disinfo. That's sort of why I don't really take sides in the whole UFO community or discourse either, because I don't know. I wasn't there. But I've had experiences, and I do think there's something there. But that doesn't mean there can't also be disinfo at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And which is why we talk about it this way. And like I said, if you're like, no, Mike, this is all phony. Cool. Got it. Perfect. I'm not even mad about that. Or if you're like, no, Mike, there's something to this. Here's what you don't know. That's what I want to hear. Or maybe you've seen something like this. And this is where this starts to become, well, whatever you want to call this in terms of, like I said, like I always say, the narrative. But beyond that, if it's just a tall tale, maybe one of you guys or somebody out there has seen something similar. You know, we've heard, like I said, we heard the Corbell tale of the jellyfish UFO, saw the video, you know, some of us were disappointed. Some people were excited, whatever. And that debate still rages on. But you get the idea. If suddenly somebody says, well, look, we got this report from Russia from years ago, and it's, you know, a wild tale that doesn't seem like anything at all. But what if somebody saw something like this here in the States or something? You know what I mean? Suddenly then things start to look a little bit different. So I don't know. Tons of good stuff as part of these documents. Like I said, tonight we're talking about these actual UFO intelligence documents stolen out of Russia. And supposedly it's sort of like their Project Blue Book, or at least a file they kept in terms of what these are, these entities or the UFOs or whatever. And I'm calling it the Soviet X-Files for obvious reasons. And the Substack is very good if you want to write it, if you want to read it. It's it kind of crawls through all this stuff. Like, okay, so why did it take 30 years to release this? What about the this or the that? But what if some of it is true? What if it's disinformation as part of the propaganda aspect of the Cold War? There's a ton here. But then again, we're going to get into some giants as well. The giants are definitely in this, and alien abduction is part of it. And I don't know, it does feel kind of like, if you look back at the zeitgeist, kind of like to that, 1980 to 89 space where Bob Lazar kind of capped off the late 80s there. It feels like that idea of alien abduction was sort of racing into the zeitgeist anyway. Remember, we've talked about this in the past with E.T., kind of being the catalyst into the 80s that came out the late 70s with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the Spielberg stuff, and then we get into the late 80s with Bob Lazar, George Knapp, and Area 51 and reverse engineering UFOs. So the narrative changes not just to, well, they might be here, people see them, people get abducted. Travis Walton was the late 70s as well. So it's also, you're wondering how much of this could be real, but then we have people all over the country and the world that have, similar accounts in a lot of ways. So what is that? What does it mean, and how deep does it go? So we'll get to the abduction part, the giants, and of course the state secrets is what this is all about. But doesn't it, when you frame it as a UFO spy game and smuggling documents out of the, former Soviet Union, doesn't that strike you as, well, I don't know, what does it strike you as? There you go. Try not to spoil the punch too much here. Anything else, James? And I'll get to another one of these things. We'll get to the giants and talk about that.
Well, just even that timeline, not long after that, I don't know what date exactly, but the whole Montauk project comes into play in the, I think, late 80s or early 90s. That possibility of, again, going to abductions or experiments, all those things, that's not too far, I don't believe, after all this happened too. So that's where my mind goes with all this. And again, the 80s, again, look at how much that's been brought back into the zeitgeist now with things like Stranger Things. So, and again, no spoilers, but if you've even just looked at the beginning of that series, that's it's about that kind of thing. So, but yeah, looking forward to the rest of the materials as well.
Right on. Great stuff. Okay, so here's straight from the New York Post. I get the source too. The New York Post, you can make the case that it's all garbage, just like you can make the case that all of the New York Times is garbage. I get it. Okay, I get it. So if you're like, Mike, it's tabloid stuff. Fine, cool. Got it. Like I said, I got it. Anyway, back to this. So let me read it, and then you decide for yourself. That's the whole point. Earthlings allegedly came into contact with a race of giant aliens on June 27th, 1979. All right. Not just aliens, not just giants, giant aliens. I love it. June 27th, 1979 in, Kazakhstan. I don't know how to say it's a Durzavinsk. Yeah, pardon my Russian. A group of pioneers, including many children, were traveling from Berezka, where they stopped to camp near a mound. One group of boys, escorted by an adult, chased a flash on the edge of a forest and came upon 10-foot tall, black, slender aliens with shining pink eyes. The next day, a girl and her teacher saw one of the giants sitting in a chair near the campsite. That's a big chair. Nearly a year after the incident, investigators spoke to the children and reported they all had the same recollection of events. Now, that also sounds familiar, right? Remember the aerial school in somewhere in Africa? I can't remember exactly where that was, but that sounds very familiar too, right? So it's odd that we have some of the echoes of these older, maybe, more traditional UFO tales or spaces or ideas that are sort of echoing back in the Russian X-Files per se, which once again doesn't surprise me, almost as if we're, kind of telling the same tall tale back and forth to each other to see who blinks on who saw what, or release, you guys are fibbing because we have real documentation about that. I don't know. Maybe that's what this is, but I don't know. So Wild James. So June 27, 1979, a group of pioneers, they saw these giants, black, slender giants with shining pink eyes. Got a take on that?
Yeah, that's I've heard of all different colored eyes beings with all, if I can talk, beings with all different colored eyes. There we go, and giants as well. And it's I don't doubt that they could happen. There's reports of them vanishing and appearing, so it's not like, well, if you want to go with, well, how do they stay hidden? Well, if they're any kind of advanced technology or interdimensional anyway, they could show up and vanish and not be seen. So, and I was a little bit distracted there, so I didn't get all the details, but I was looking up the Montauk thing, and apparently it did start, the talk about it and the possibility of it did start in the 80s.
Yeah. And once again, that doesn't surprise me. Late 70s, early 80s, kind of coming into that space with E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Travis Walton, and that incident of the alien abduction. A lot of that kind of going through that space. And then it faded off. Like we talked about this recently, too, where some of that stuff really faded out of the zeitgeist for a minute. And now it's back hot and heavy because of the, the UFO disclosure and a lot of the new sort of internet influencers that are part of this trying to, push these narratives out to get true answers from the government. And so, me, answers from the government, even if they came out and said, by the way, guys, aliens are real. Here's their names. Here's their photographs. I wouldn't believe it. I'd be like, yes, get out of here. I'm not believing that either. So me, if the source is rotten, and it is when we're talking about the government, whatever they say, I just don't buy. So anyway, I appreciate that, James. Hang tight. We'll get back to you momentarily. I got you, Derek. Yep, top of the hour is good. We got Mr. Mission Control on the line. Let's go to him and let's keep on trucking. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. James, I'm going to click this over so you don't hear echo. And so also you can hear the calls. Let me know if this works. Let's see, Pro2 chat. And here we go. Mr. Mission Control, you are on Troubled Minds. What's going on, my man? Welcome back, and go right ahead. What do you know about these Soviet X-Files?
You don't want to know what I know about the Soviet X-Files. Hey, dude, I really did see a Tic Tac the other day, though, when I was right before sundown. Was it 2 days ago? 2.5 days ago. It was going from east to west over Rogers and Springdale here. Yeah, he was moving fast, dude, like quick. There wasn't nothing to else been, but it looked like a boomerang Tic Tac, right? Like the ones they say. I've never seen anything like it in this area of my life. I've seen stuff, orange lights and things out by Eureka, but I've never seen anything over my area. Now, what I want to address here is aliens, well, our type of aliens, they try to steal your identity. Now, with the clawbot and stuff, they must have found some new ways to do what I'm doing with the BLE anomaly scans and the Wi-Fi. So I just happened to do out in front of the Harley shop here the other day, and we got some guys sitting out there trying to skim the cash out digitally. And so I turned over their UIDs to them, and then they screenshot it. And then last night, I was here at Walmart Market, and I just left there talking to security on Hudson here, right the market right next to the mainframe. And so they've got guys parsed out a couple stationaries. So my advice, don't tie into any free Wi-Fi. Make sure your stuff is locked down and don't have your NFT thing active on your phones when you're trying to pay for stuff until you actually start paying for stuff. Okay, and make note if anybody get close to you, but they don't have to get close to you anymore. They just have to sit out in the parking lot. And so I just floated this to Walmart security, and I got the firmware and any hardware you need for manual devices. But I'm just using Wiggle.net and the network scans and the established platform like Microsoft Copilot and Grok. I'm not floating any, go use this. But Claude was hard to parse over, but I got Claude parsed over too. He's a butthead. So I would advise not getting into the Clawbot AI or any of that stuff because there's Trojans and things running around in it. Don't put your agents in there. Now the Soviet, okay? So back off in Siberia, we know about, they dug all this stuff up, right? There's areas where they had planetary defense, old technology, right? And plus what we know about CERN, we dug it up, we plugged it in, what was it, 1970, right? So that's, you got, where I found that out because they shut down in December for maintenance. Well, if you go to the beam dumps, it shows the last beam dump as 1970, bro. So that's when they must have plugged it in, not when they told us they started running it. So that solidifies all the Tartarian mudflood pre-technology cover-up stuff that we've been thinking about. You know what I mean? So Mom kicked me out the house again the other day ago, but she didn't let me come back, get my clothes and stuff. She's going to let me put a tent out in the lot. My son's come back from Tulsa because he could make the bills, but I think they're using MK Ultra or something because I've got the signals and everything on her to keep me out here working. Because you know me, I'm an old Ozark shaman. I find bones. I find lots of stuff that I shouldn't. And I hope you guys are doing well. Keep the faith up, brother. And watch that solar activity because it parsed into the aurora last night. And we're starting to see more than magnitude 5s go off in critical areas as per my geosignal.io warned of 3 months ago. Just get ready.
Okay.
And don't speak out against what they're doing federally. Don't speak out against this administration until the administration's over with. And stuff switches sides. My advice is to just not do any political speak because they do have that Gideon, surveillance in everything. Your router, your phone, anything that pops a signal, dude. Even the people that were, had the thing in them, remember? All that stuff's listening 24 hours a day, even with your phone off. Unless you just don't have a device on you at all, they hear everything. So be wary. Don't get on that list because they make a list, brother. I don't know if it's going to get to the Russian pogrom like they did to the GEWs before World War I and II. Yeah, they popped 3 pogroms on them before that happened. And Netanyahu just warned Trump the other day about something. I'm like, I'm not even listening to that stuff, Mike. I'm like, I know where I'm going. Nobody's going to steal my people's information here in my AO at Walmart headquarters. I got this stuff wrapped up.
Copy
you
that.
guys,
copy that.
Look at my post. Take the shares out in Grok, though. I work with Microsoft Copilot, but it's hard to parse it because she'll tell you that she can't do this stuff. Grok will take it, though. Grok will do everything you want. Take any kind of internet mapping and stuff and do whatever you ask. So I would suggest you guys find out what's around your area. Wiggle.net or any other Wi-Fi mapping or BLE, war driving. Just search, ask your AI, how do I war drive? Right? And that's kind of like what I did with the ElectroSmart at first going around here, like I told you. So
okay. I have no idea what you're talking about, a lot of that, but I will definitely look into that. You said wiggle.net, and we're just about out of time. So
yeah,
Go ahead.
They're trying to steal digitally, verbatim, just driving by and steal your information, basically. So they use the AI to bypass all the security. You know, I'm a red hatter. I'm a gray hatter, right? I do this for fun, not for profit. I do this for you guys.
I appreciate the advice. You were the best. Thanks for the call. Stay safe out there. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.
Always. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mission Control, you know what to do. Give him a follow, troubledminds.org/friends, or just search it yourself. Mr. Mission Control, you'll find him on YouTube and many other places. Check out the stuff he's talking about, because he does full videos on these things and posts on YouTube and the rest. So if you're interested in what he was talking about, definitely go give him a follow. Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up in just a moment. We've got more from James, Derek the Night Stalker, and your calls as well. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, I'm calling this the Soviet X-Files, Abductions, Giants, and State Secrets. Now, if you go back to this New York Post article, UFO intel documents stolen out of Russia reveal decade-long probes into alien encounters and abductions. Now, that particularly doesn't surprise me, because I would imagine, let's say that whether you were even a non-believer in a secular state like the former Soviet Union certainly was, if somebody was saying they got abducted by an alien, I think you might be interested in kind of checking that out to see if it's real or not, because, you know, and I think that's sort of the cursory action the governments will take, even if they don't believe that crap, right? Meaning, you know, from their perspective, we don't believe that crap at all, but then they send people to check it out. So it's like, well, which is it, bro? Do you believe that crap or not? Because you're wasting some resources on it, so maybe. But anyway, there's a lot of interesting tidbits in here. We talked about the giants, the actual tall black giants with sparkling pink eyes. Like, what the hell is that? Talked about this giant UFO jellyfish, which was, 450 feet wide, and hundreds of people saw it. And this is all from, again, George Knapp supposedly bought them or smuggled them out of Russia. Again, that's to be determined, I guess. You decide your truth factor on all these things anyway, not me. But basically, that there's a lot of interesting files in this, and we'll get to some of the other stuff, because it is wild that, look, we had actual Project Blue Book, Project Grudge, and all the rest of the things that kind of came as part of that. And so it doesn't surprise me that the former Soviet Union would be into this and be kind of looking into this as, well, maybe what if they are like suddenly having all these UFOs crash all over the United States? What does that mean for us? Like, we don't have any crashes, right? So it certainly becomes this back and forth aspect of spy game propaganda, or, putting information out to see how interested the other side is. Like, I get that stuff, but I don't know, as usual, right? You can kind of put these ideas together and see that there are maybe people you know in your life. Maybe you've seen something anomalous in this guy that defies all explanation. And so that's where we sit with this, because we don't really know, do we? And that's, like you can be emphatic about something, but just because you are doesn't mean that's the truth of the universe. You see what I mean? So anyway, love to hear your thoughts on this. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubleminds.org. Anything to add, James? And then we'll go to Derek the Night Stalker.
Yeah, great call from Mr. Mission Control. I'm just thinking, you already mentioned like Project Grudge and all those things. So yes, the U.S. government here has looked into these things, and they had different times where they looked into things with the purpose of actually trying to figure things out. And they had times, and probably at the same time, they had other people looking into things to try to discount them, to disprove or to get people to stop being interested in these things. And I can imagine if that's happening here, then that's probably happened, elsewhere as well. I have a hard time imagining that wouldn't happen in some form. Over in again back when it was the Soviet Union, and I mean, we know that there's been UFOs do not just happen in the U.S. They happen all over the world, Europe and again Russia, South America, all these other places. People have experiences there, so makes sense that there would be some kind of organizations looking into these things over in the former Soviet Union as well.
Yeah, again, like I said, absolutely does not surprise me. There would be an interest, at least in the spy game aspect of it. But beyond that, what if, if there's UFOs raining down in your neighbor country, wouldn't you want to know about it? I think that's an absolute fact. Great stuff, James. Get back to you momentarily. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Let's go to Derek in Massachusetts. The Night Stalker. What's up, brother? How are you tonight? I know it's freezing out there. Thanks for braving the cold for us and giving us a call and sharing your thoughts. What's on your mind, my man? Don't freeze.
Oh man, it's brutal. It's brutal. It feels warm. It's a balmy 10 degrees tonight. It was it was like 3 degrees, and it felt according to the wind chill or whatever the metric to go by, quote unquote, feels like negative 25 getting out of work the other day. So 10 feels nice. But I left my headphones in my car, so if they stop working, hopefully it's not because they're frozen or whatever, but we should be good. Wild show tonight. Crazy stuff. Just weird stuff. Maybe team me off for really quickly, but I got a bunch of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, where do you want to go with it? Basically, George Knapp smuggled these or bought these documents out of Russia back in 1989. Again, at the height of not just the Bob Lazar space, but after the end of the Soviet Union. So it's a weird thing where suddenly there's tall black giants with sparkling pink eyes. I can't even speak tonight. And then the other thing is that the giant jellyfish, and there's more too, like actual abduction experiences that come out of these documents. And like I said, these are available in full if you guys want to read these. Links are in the description if you want to fact check me and see if I'm fibbing. I'm not. This is actually the story. But I don't know, like it definitely reeks of spy game stuff, absolutely. But then, and of course, Cold War propaganda, but then how much of this is even more weird that the Soviet Union was kind of conducting their own Project Blue Book with this weird stuff that kind of doesn't even fit into our own Project Blue Book. It's more strange than that.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer that their Blue Book is cooler than our Blue Book. Like they're going to a cool war, you might say. We're losing the cool war to them. But just my BS meter is going off like crazy. He just hung on to this for over 30 years, for 33 years. That seems weird to me, right? That doesn't strike you as weird. He just didn't talk about this for that long. That guy, I know about the Corbel jellyfish thing, the one that you're talking about that looks like kind of the bird poop thing. It doesn't move, but it's kind of flying over that military base, but it just looks like a smudge on the lens. That when we talked about that was the same time where it's like 2021 or whatever it was, 2022. Where we're like, have you noticed all the tentacles everywhere? Tentacles. Now we got tentacle UFOs, and there was plasma being UFOs. Like the paradigm is finally switching, and the summer of saucers, the summer of like strange saucers is happening. Like we're going from nuts and bolts to weirdness and stuff. Like that was my takeaway from it and stuff. And I'm not that into the UFO, like mainstream UFO stuff. So people have heard more Corbel, more Knapp than I have, but I've heard a good amount. And he doesn't talk about that kind of stuff. And it's just like listening to stuff that's even like from 2015 when they broached like Ancient Aliens from like 2015, when they broached the topic of maybe these things aren't actually craft, but they're interdimensional. They're coming from portals, and they got to explain the concept of portals and interdimensional beings and stuff. Like in 1989, 1993, we were firmly in the nuts and bolts stage. And Bob Lazar even reaffirmed that even more with his re-engineering crafts and stuff. Like, I don't know. I feel like, hey, why'd you hang on to it for so long? Why now? And just you couldn't reference it, even if you couldn't mention, oh, there's something weirder going on. We got jellyfish UFOs happening. I got more thoughts, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, and that's exactly the point here. Is that we were, I don't know. It almost feels like kind of in 2026 after the hyper reality, just all the weirdness that's happened since the AI space and all the fake videos and it's just getting worse. But it feels like 1989 was sort of like a. Not like a nostalgia thing, but almost like a childhood view of what the phenomenon might be or what UFOs are, right? Like as you said, nuts and bolts. It seems very, very human to kind of put on the idea of UFOs. And here we are, and I talked about this forever, and now 2026. You and I and James and many of us here have talked about this for literally years at this point. And I don't know, like nuts and bolts seems like it's the furthest thing from my mind when it comes to these ideas. And so, a little naive aspect of 1989 and UFOs is now suddenly, not just the demons, but beyond that, everything else that kind of comes with it, there's Lovecraftian stuff that you're talking about. I don't know. Like it almost feels as if that larger narrative has shifted intentionally, again, from the UFOs, which is nuts and bolts,
sure.
to the UAP, which is unidentified aerial or anomalous phenomenon. So it suddenly starts to not be like an object in the sky. Now it's, as we've talked about, maybe plasma or some of these other weird things. So I don't know, the whole thing reeks of not just, let's say, a direct psyop, but sort of like a controlled psyop to change the way people see it for non-human intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to that real quick, he definitely waited until tentacles were of the moment, until people were ready for the idea of tentacles and everything. Yeah, I got a ton of thoughts. I'm trying to keep them straight. I don't want to talk about this, like, get too deep into this just for time's sake, but just then, like, I think that we have a manifestation process happening, or some type of like a form is being created, or there's some type of long game with these things. Like, just use the Cthulhu on the other side of the veil, entering Lovecraft via his dreams or via cracks in his psyche, until it gets to a tipping point in the zeitgeist where people know about Cthulhu so much and believe in him so much where he can manifest. Just use that as an example. We need something regular, something like acceptable, something like close to science, like close to technology we have, but almost we have scientists that are tinkering with stuff. This is nuts. This is physical crafts. Like, people put their hands on this and they're getting dirty in labs and stuff, trying to figure out how this stuff works. Like, we need like something to seed the process. You can hear me, right? Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Something. Sorry. Well, we need something to like kind of seed the process, and then once now, everybody, like, I was born in 1989. I was born in a post Bob Lazar world and stuff. And he's talking about just disc shapes and different types of crafts, like 2-person crafts and top hat style crafts and stuff. Not jellyfish and everything. So if you're a nap, I mean, why wasn't I born into a world where we're talking about jellyfish, UFOs and stuff, and weirder interdimensional things and weird like tentacles everywhere? Why did I make such a big deal about it 3 or 4 years ago and stuff? Well, it seems like we're getting pretty Lovecraftian over here. Just now that people believe in it, they can kind of take the next step of its manifestation, kind of see more of its true form, so to speak. Could be one potential thing. But like in 1989, you got 2 pieces of news. You got Bob Lazar saying, I know about this facility and stuff. I work in these craft. And then you also got a bunch of documents talking about these wild things. How come you've been talking about one ad nauseum for so long, to a point where I've been bored with it, and wasn't really even interested in the UFO topic a decade ago, until I got more into the weird stuff and the portal aspect of it, whatever. And then it kind of reopened up for me. Like, why didn't you, like, in passing, if you can't release at least the documents, at least put it into the zeitgeist? Yeah, we got like football field sized jellyfish UFOs running around. Like, I want, like, what do you think about that before I move on to the next the next thing?
Yeah,
I don't know. It seems far fetched to me. Yeah.
I think there is sort of this I don't know, like a limiting aspect of the zeitgeist. And I think maybe if you said that in 1989, I think he would have been written off entirely. You know what I mean? Maybe it would have completely buried the narrative. Again, just playing devil's advocate or angel's advocate for that side of the conversation. Yeah. Is that if we're talking about, Bob Lazar called one the sport model, right? I mean, he had like different actual, he was talking about them like they were vehicles, like cars. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But in this particular sense, we're like, okay, so that one's really fast, the sport model UFO, right? The reverse engineered UFOs. Yeah. But then if they were like, and we also have ones that look like jellyfish the size of football fields, then everybody's like, boo, they close the book and they turn the TV off and they walk away, right? So maybe it is sort of that aspect of we weren't ready for that as a conversation. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes. I just froze for a minute. Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Testing again.
You're good.
My screen's kind of frozen. Okay.
You're good.
Yeah, sorry. If I stop, okay.
We got you if you stop. Yeah, just go ahead. Okay, we got you if you stop.
Sorry. Yeah, that's definitely the devil's advocate argument to make, and that's the kind of the same case for the Bigfoot stuff. Like, that we have generations and decades of intentionally leaving out the weirder stuff so that we can get mainstream acceptance for these kind of fringier topics, which I understand from we have to see this idea type of thing, but it's not the truth. I mean, if you have a greater understanding of what's the phenomena, then just like I don't know why was I bored with why was I bored with the space bend coming from space, reverse engineering craft? Like, I don't know, just there's something much deeper. At least kind of like hint at that, and he's just starting at hinting at that in the last couple of years. Potentially, we got something weirder happening with all the summoning and that type of stuff. Like, I feel like it's like, I don't know. It seems strange to me. But just James, you're talking about like potentially it's a belief aspect, and people were hearing stories about it, and synchronistically, this is 89 would have been 2 or 3 years after Alan Moore's Watchmen, which spoiler alert for almost 40-year-old comic at this point, but that ends with like the smartest man in the world trying to end the Cold War between Russia and America, and this is like happening within months of Reagan's speech being like, what if we had an alien invasion, the world would have peace, we would be bonded over a common enemy and stuff. And this is a 10-issue, 12-issue series. That's, if you know like just how comics are made, he had it written and storyboarded, and maybe completely written, waiting to be published, but at least like the idea was pitched, and it was like he knew what was going to be happening. And that speech was made like a month before the final issue had dropped. So he kind of predicted programming that speech, but the smartest man in the world wanted to do a false flag alien invasion to bring the world together. And he did it by creating a fake portal and dropping a fake giant squid onto New York City and doing and killing 1 million people with like this kind of like 9/11 with a giant interdimensional squid and everything. And then you're talking about maybe the world wasn't ready for giant tentacles and squids. And like when Zack Snyder did the movie version of it in 2008, 2009, he changed it to a false flag nuclear attack because he didn't think the world was ready for tentacles and stuff. And I still hold that against them and everything. So that's still part of it. But I mean, maybe Alan Moore, who's the biggest like chaos magician comic writer, maybe he kind of sensed something. He's the one who saw his own character, Constantine James, in the bar that time.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting. I got 1 or 2 quick other things. But do you have any thoughts, James? I don't want to ramble too much.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, James. If you got anything.
Just I do think the timing is fascinating with Knapp doing this now. And it does seem to be. I think he is a reporter, and everything. But I also wonder, how many contacts does he have in the government that are sort of, whether directly or indirectly, leading him to make decisions to do this now. And how often does it happen with anybody within that whole field? And so it could be a timing thing. I think it's also this was released a little while back, but now it's out now. What's happening today in the world? And what this article just came out the other day about the Russian files, and what's happening today? Who's paying attention to those files other than people like us?
Yeah.
And what's going on today in the world that everyone knows about that none of us are watching directly, at least.
But most of us.
Sports ball.
Sports ball and the Epstein files are completely washing this out of the thing. So, I mean, one might argue that this is the distraction from that, or that is the distraction from this. I mean, and that's why these conversations and the ideas and people looking at these from different perspectives is what this is all about, because who really knows? And I do love entirely the tentacles and that whole bit, right, as a manifestation technique, right? So if this is in our minds, like Thor's back into our minds from the MCU and, kind of bringing back the old Norse a little bit, just barely. But then beyond that, if we have sort of the tentacles kind of coming down into New York City as an idea, it is sort of a Peter Levenda style manifestation aspect.
Exactly.
Where if you put it out there and it gets enough coverage and people are thinking about it, then they're dreaming about it, and then I don't know. Does it happen? Does it happen?
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, what's going on. Like that's exactly what I think is happening. And then it's really weird. And like to the like, I mean, if there's orbs coming out of it like that, like again, I've been watching like sightings a lot recently and stuff, and like going through that kind of just while I fall asleep in the background and everything. And I think it's pretty good, but it's very nuts and bolts. Then even in the like watching early Ancient Aliens or just those like late aughts era UFO shows and stuff, like when they're trying to explain maybe like balls of light and orbs and stuff, it's a foreign concept even in the 2000s and everything. And if if Knapp is a thought leader in this thing, and if you know that this kind of huge like stadium sized jellyfish thing might be a craft, probably not, that then splits into a bunch of orbs, like you gotta at least like seed that into the conversation a little bit. You're not doing your job, like shut up Patriots, but do your job, what the hell's happening? But just like what are they? Like what could they be? James, big Stephen King guy, so you might know more about this than me. I'm gonna try to be quick just to get the idea. But Pennywise is like this alien thing, a shape-shifting thing that's like mostly appears as a clown or often appears as a spider and these weird monsters, but it uses your fears. So if potentially the idea of a jellyfish because of Alan Moore and this like somehow was in the zeitgeist that he picked up and that was like some kind of ingrained in eruption fear or whatever, some kind of weird plasma jelly thing. It appeared like that. And it has these things called deadlights and that are basically like orbs that kind of, I'm trying to read the AI description of it, glowing otherworldly lights or orbs tied to the victim's deepest fear. They drive people into madness, manipulate and control victims, can lead them to insanity or death. They appear when Pennywise attacks or manipulates physically, often in moments of intense fear, and still terror, yada yada. But just these orbs, these deadlights, they call it, these orbs, these glowing orbs that happen around when he's like shapeshifting and Archon style, sucking fear from people and everything. So maybe that's some kind of weird mass UFO event or some type of weird Pennywise style deadlight, weird interdimensional shapeshifting thing going on potentially. And then just a quick audio check because I keep touching my phone.
You're good. You're
sorry.
good. Yeah, loud and clear. Not one single hiccup.
Sorry.
You're totally good.
All right. I hate doing it, but I don't want to ruin the show or anything. We talked about this before, but this is from 1978. Researcher Trevor James Constable came out with a book. They Live in the Sky. Oh, They Live in the Sky in 1959, and then he had Sky Creatures, Living UFOs in 1978. So one possible theory for what these things are living objects. So maybe not jellyfish style craft, but could be interdimensional beings, or he described them. Claiming these UFOs come from a parallel universe known as Etheria, and that there were two categories of UFOs. Some were machines, but others were living creatures. These invisible creatures can sometimes appear in the upper atmosphere. So when people talk about these giant amoebas, these giant jellyfish things, these giant weird plasmoids up in the sky, like maybe there's a whole like biosphere in the upper atmosphere that are kind of popping in and out of dimensionality. Was at least his theory. So maybe that's what's going on, that we're seeing some kind of like weird plasma jellyfish sky critter kind of dipping down too low and it got sighted while it's releasing a bunch of eggs into the sky and people just saw it, but it happens all the time, or who knows? I'm just throwing out weird ideas, but sorry for rambling. What do you think about that?
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead, James. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry to get in, but I just had to because this is fascinating. In the novel It, the children have an experience where they see a vision of it arriving on Earth, and it literally comes down, crashes to Earth in like a meteor comet kind of thing, very amoeba-like, very orb-like, lands on Earth. Not only that, in recent years, and in doing what I do now, and this is something I never hear about anywhere else, but there are people who have seen orbs that have spikes or have tentacles, and sometimes they're orbs of light, sometimes they're shadow. But again, that's not being pushed again in the mainstream. Funny enough, mainstream UFO circles, orbs, yes, but any kind of shape-shifting orb, as far as I've heard, not so much. But fascinating connection there to fiction and reality and all those, the way those things connect. Yeah.
So some large tentacled creature, or like he usually uses like it's kind of more like crab or spider like, but very like Stephen King is obsessed with Lovecraft, so very like Lovecraftian in imagery, using kind of deep ingrained fear, which may be some kind of Lovecraftian jellyfish type ingrained fear in us, and then as it transforms and as it's interacting with humanity, it produces these lights, these orbs, and everything. So maybe that's a version of what people saw. I don't know. What do you think, Mike? Or a sky critter?
We've talked about that often, and ball lightning as part of it. People have described, that's the old Project Blue Book trope, is it's all swamp gas and ball lightning, right? Except we can't really sort of define. We can define it, but we can't really replicate it easily. And ball lightning is kind of a weird thing. And we've speculated kind of, again, squint with your mind's eye and be like, okay, so if there is a primordial nature spirit, my favorite folklore, would it manifest as not swamp gas, but ball lightning in the essence of the will-o'-the-wisp or something like that, where people have been telling tales of this forever, but this is the type of stuff that we see now, even in 2026, and it still seems to resonate and make some sense, not just in the UFO conversation, but in the consciousness conversation, and in a larger context of entities, of non-human intelligence.
Yeah. real quick, I think ball lightning might be a natural phenomenon that we didn't really understand. It kind of manifests these kind of things in the atmosphere, and I think we have formless entities that might ride the lightning or kind of ride the plasma. Maybe that's why blood plasma, whatever. Like maybe they kind of momentarily possess this form that happens in nature. Like a ball lightning will happen, and then something will incarnate into it and interact for a time. So some ball lightning, or I don't know, it's a weird thing. But then also synchronistically, the sighting was the 13th, and it's just, I have a list somewhere of famous UFO sightings that happened on the 13th, and it is absolutely ridiculous. So as far as like if this thing is real or some kind of ritual thing, and then to the Epstein thing, there's like he was arrested around an important UFO day. Maxwell was arrested on UFO day. He was like tried or like something important happened during the Storm Area 51 went viral and stuff. Like his victims during like painted him in UFOs. Like he's ritually tied to UFOs. So if there's some kind of ritual rollout, great stuff. Great show, brother.
Let me know if you want to do a show. You're good. Let me know if you want to do a show on that 13 stuff. That's absolutely wild. Appreciate you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you, bro. Later, guys. Later, James.
You're the best. Derek the Night Stalker. You know him, you love him. Give him a follow. TroubledMinds.org/friends. Says follow Derek or follow the Night Stalker. Very easy. Please do that. Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way. Fascinating stuff as always. How much of this synchronicity actually plays and how much weirder is it going to get? Be right back. See you on the other side of the break. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. All the places, all the things, yada, yada. If you're still here and don't know what I'm talking about or what we're doing, well, give me a call. Let me know what's on your mind. We're talking UFOs tonight, but not just UFOs, these Soviet X-Files, I'm calling this. Abductions, giants, and state secrets. And look, George Knapp supposedly smuggled out some documents in 1989 or thereabouts. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, or 91, whatever it was, what's the year? And we're told that this is a real document, but I don't know. Like, what do you think? As usual, look, when I hear this type of stuff, it does make my tinfoil tingle for a lot of reasons. But also, I am not the arbiter of truth. I want you to understand that. Yeah, I'm Michael Strange. I got the podcast, whatever that means, right? Like whatever clout that gets. I don't want it. I don't want clout. I just want ideas. I want collective ideas to kind of look at this from different ways and say, what is real? Because I don't know. I am not the arbiter of truth, as I always say, barely my own, just trying to get by in this human life as we do. But what do you know about this? Does it surprise you? And what are we supposed to make of this? Because there's a ton of really weird Russian stuff, by the way. Remember Dalatov Pass? Shout out Gordo in the chat was saying that when we first started tonight. It's one of the weirdest stories you've ever heard, and it's a story that happened in the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. So, I mean, I don't know, like what kind of stuff is real, what kind of stuff is not, but that's why we're here talking about it. Love to hear your thoughts, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Robert, thanks for being patient, my man. You're on Troubled Minds. How are you tonight, sir? And go right ahead.
I'm fine. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. You sound fantastic.
Okay. If you don't mind, before I address the topic, tonight's topic, I'd like to say a couple things about your last topic.
Sure, please do.
I didn't get to tune into it live, but I watched the whole show yesterday, as a matter of fact. There's two things I want to address on that. One is the possibility that the AI gets so sophisticated that it eventually creates its own simulation. We may be a simulation of a ancient AI.
Sure.
This may be just history repeating itself. The second thing I want to address is where the AI finds a final solution to its need for energy. And I think what will probably happen eventually is that the AI will figure out Tesla's idea of energy in the atmosphere, and that eventually AI will get its electricity on its own from the atmosphere.
Yeah, 0 point or whatever that it was. Yeah, I mean, I think so. The weirdo of the moment, Mr. Elon Musk, has said that eventually we're going to have to put data centers in space to get energy directly from the sun. So I mean, there's things in motion. And he said recently, I think yesterday, or the day before, on some other podcast, where he said that that's going to happen within 3 years. So they're going to be literally data centers in orbit, absorbing energy from the sun because we just can't create enough of it down here. So if between now and then there's some exotic breakthrough like fusion or the fusion reactor or whatever, I mean, maybe, right? But I think we're still sort of in that space of we do need a ton more energy than we can produce here on Earth. But what does that look like? And I also want to say about that last show is the Clawbot, I'm not using anymore. I completely wiped the server I was using it on. And I just made my own. I made my own today in an afternoon that's completely custom. It's not the McDonald's slop of agents. And I don't have to worry about like WordPress, like everybody in the world trying to hack it because nobody knows about it because it's mine. Find my server. In one afternoon, I created a very personalized one that is not the McDonald's of agents. So anyway, just to put that to bed now, but go ahead, sir.
That's brilliant of you.
Thank you.
As far as those data centers go, it's the consumers that's paying the price for that. I've seen all over the internet people complaining about their electric bills going up 2, 3, 4%. I mean, 4 times. Because our creepy representatives make deals with these data centers that pass on the cost of their electricity to the consumer, and it's getting out of hand. But I think that we're on the precipice of fusion. But what I think, the only way that the AI could ever become all powerful is if it could generate its own electricity. And I think eventually it will, and it will probably use Tesla's theory of getting it from the atmosphere, because then it'll take it. Nobody can shut it down. Nobody can cut its fuel.
Yeah, that makes sense. But also, it still needs a vessel, and that vessel is the servers, or in our case, the vessel would be us. But I don't know, like that's last show's conversation. What do you know about the Russian UFOs? Let's get to that.
Okay. I sent you 2 links to 2 videos. The first one, I thought, because frankly, the idea that Russian UFOs are something that is less than the United States situation is ridiculous. The Soviets have been getting UFOs problems, that kind of thing for years and years and years. But the one video, the one article, it's a video, but there's the article itself is in the video, claiming that these soldiers came upon this UFO in Russia, and when the UFO took off, I think it was like 20 of those soldiers were turned to stone pillars.
Yeah, I think I remember that. I don't remember the finite details of that, but I do remember vaguely when we talked about, we did a Medusa show about that because obviously it makes the most sense, right?
Right, but it reminded me of the biblical Sodom and Gomorrah, where Lot's wife looks back and she's turned into a pillar of salt.
Yeah, and we talked about it then during that show. Yeah, I can't remember the name of that show, but we certainly covered that. And so, like Dolotov Pass, we've got the Tunguska, which is, again, still sort of wobbly on exactly how that happened or why that happened. There's some really weird stuff because Russia is such a massive land space. You're going to get some weird stuff. And so when you tell me there's a report of weird stuff happening in Russia, I don't blink. I just go, do tell. What are we talking about?
In that second video, that first time I put it up, it's blurry. It's not very good. It's a Reddit video. But I found another one that's a lot clearer, right? And I remember this from, my goodness, years ago. I believe it was on the History Channel, that video of the Russians approaching, with their caravan and soldiers approaching this UFO that was somehow crashed in a wooded area.
Okay. I didn't have time to go through it all, but I definitely will. And I'll add those links that he
that's
dropped.
worth looking at.
Okay.
That's worth looking at because this is before AI and the way you could, basically create anything. This is back in 1969. This video is supposed to have taken place.
Okay, and for the record, I will drop those links that he sent. They will be linked in the description. So please go check those out. So I again, I'm doing 10 things at once here, so I can't stop and go do that.
Sure, I understand that completely. That's why I'm taking the time to describe it.
Appreciate it. Go right ahead.
And these soldiers, and of course they did the same very thing that our government does. Cordoned off the area. Soldiers approached. They tried to bang on the thing, and they eventually lift it up, with a crane or whatever, and put it on a truck and drive off with it. I'm not sure, and I just can't imagine, since it was a 1969 video. I mean, there's probably a smaller odds that it was faked, but I think it's a larger odds because of the. I think it wasn't faked at all. I think that it's something that's worth looking at.
Yeah, and even some of these, seemingly frivolous things, I think there might be some truth inlaid in the narratives. And that's why it's important to talk about these things the way we do, because just because you go, nah, there's nothing here, doesn't necessarily, and I'm not saying you, just you out there collectively, whoever's listening, there's nothing here. Cool, fine. But what if there's a nugget in there of something? I mean, this is how counterintelligence and intelligence is done in the modern day.
This is more that the UFO that's in that video is more than a nugget. It's very clear. It's not like some will-o'-the-wisp in the sky. I mean, the craft is there, up close and personal. And matter of fact, I would encourage all your listeners to take a look at that and maybe post their own ideas of what they, whether they think it's a fake or it's not.
Amen. Amen. I appreciate that very much. I will take a look myself. And if you guys want to do that, drop it in the Discord, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link right on top. It's a chat client. It's a voice client. It's completely free. If you don't know how to use it when you get in there, just ask and we'll help you. We've got a ton of people that are good at it and can help you through that. What else you got? Go ahead, sir.
What I got now is I want to hear what Daryl has to say.
Right on. I appreciate you very much. Thanks for being patient with us. Thanks for staying up late. Thanks for being such a good friend for such a long time, a mentor to us all. And keep on keeping on. Always a pleasure, my man. Have a great night. You know him, you love him. That is the Robert. You know how to follow him. troubledminds.org/friends. Scroll down just a little bit. And it's actually, he's under the Robert because that is his writer name. Is actually Robert's book is what it's under. Wait, I think this is reverted to anyway, go click that. Go buy his book. It's called Stories from a Fractured Mind, the Robert Collection. Fantastic writer, fantastic thinker, and just a fantastic guy. He's been a good friend for a long time, supporting the show and helping us out in a ton of ways. So there you go. You know what to do. Anything on that, James? And we'll go to Daryl and wrap this up.
Just a great call from Robert. Great call from Derek as well earlier. And yeah, the UFO thing, to me, that's always fascinating when there's physical effects on people and or the environment. It's terrible when there's effects on people, but there are reports of the ground underneath these things being affected so that nothing will grow there anymore. There appear to be physical effects on places where these things land. So that to me is a whole other topic, I guess, in a way, but it's fascinating that is said to happen. So, and yeah, great call so far as always.
Yeah, we are blessed with such smart and amazing people, including yourself. Thanks again for staying up late with us and sharing your ideas. We're talking the Soviet X-Files, I'm calling this. Abductions, Giants, and State Secrets. Give us a call, 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubledminds.org to listen to the show or also contribute. It's a chat client. It's a voice client. It's completely free. I know I just said that, but come say hi. There's a lot of active people that you hear and know on this show that you can go chat with over there and collaborate with over there. And speaking of which, let's go to Daryl in New York. Thanks for being patient, my friend. You're on Troubled Minds. How are you? And go right ahead.
Hi, everybody. Great calls so far. I really like this subject. Of course, I love giants and anything to do with giants. People have been talking about Russia lately as far as what I go to sleep to and what auto plays on my YouTube queue. And the funny thing is, they've been talking about this area called Gynoshoria. It's a part of, I think it's in Siberia, where they found these monstrous megalithic structures that are probably maybe 100,000 years old. They're bigger than anything that we've ever seen. And of course, where there's big structures, I'm sure there's giants that were constructing them, of course. They are enormous. They're beyond anything that we wouldn't even attempt to try to do something this big. It's ridiculous. Like 700 feet long, and some stones are 60 feet in length, 23 feet in height. It's unimaginable that we would be moving anything that size. It's crazy. 700 feet long. I mean, it's too big, you know. And they're trying to say that these occur in nature due to shifting, you know, plates. I mean, the Russians are really good at covering up anything logical. You know, I can't believe even that they said they didn't have a space anything to do with space because they didn't find it. You know, this was like make believe. You know, but then of course they did have something perhaps that was investigating UFOs. You know, but they're good at denying stuff and covering up, just like we are. You know. So I'm not surprised. So they're trying to dismiss like anything supernatural or, you know, paranormal, and including anything with space, you know. But I just think this place, that Gynoshoria, just check it out. Unbelievable. These big, you know, huge polygonal, you know, masonries. It's just unbelievably large. And of course, you know, these little girls that were telling about the giants that they saw, their story never changed. You know, the little witnesses to the giants that they witnessed in Russia. And I love what Robert said about the thing you brought up once about the soldiers that found some sort of UFO, and when they looked at it, they turned to stone, and they were, you know, carted off and never seen again. So God only knows what technology is going on there. And apparently, these you know, not only these the octopus, but they had done some kind of expedition in Antarctica, and they saw some kind of, it could have been an octopus or a jellyfish that turned into a scuba diver. You know, they shapeshift, they could imitate colors, you know, they could simulate any, like a chameleon. They could look like anything. They're very smart, and they wound up killing one of them, you know, one of the one of the people that was doing the research, you know. So I think, you know, the species of jellyfish or octopus, I think they're very similar, and they're, you know, they're very gelatinous and, you know, translucent or transparent, plasmatic, perhaps.
Super smart.
So, you know,
very smart.
Very smart, shape shifting, you know, reptilian, alien, whatever. You know, this is like your worst nightmare, that's something like that. But they didn't see it in the water, right? These girls saw them, this kind of jellyfish out of water, correct?
Yeah, and we've talked about this a lot in the past. Shout out Kelly out there. He's sharing some of these things on the Discord too. Is that this is not new, the idea of sort of a jellyfish in the sky. It's not new, but I do wonder if it's something that sort of inhabits our dreams. So think of it this way. Now let's just throw all the woo aside and go, okay, so if Mike is a science-minded guy, think of it this way. Let's say that panspermia itself is like these comets that have just come by recently in the last several years, you know, 3I Atlas and the one before that, Oumuamua. They're bringing the building blocks of life from primordial spaces of the universe, of the cosmos, okay? But those building blocks have an evolutionary basis to become tentacled things, right? And so maybe the reason why Lovecraft had sort of those bizarre dreams, and why many of us still do, and why this idea kind of sticks, like we were talking about with Derek earlier, is maybe that is, dare I say, the basis for life. It just is. And so we're sort of in the minority with 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 eyes, kind of land dwelling entities. But maybe, like, in the larger context of life throughout the universe, maybe it's all tentacles all the time. You know what I mean? Not manga, but tentacles all the time.
Right. Well, they might be much more flexible in where they can, you know, live with that kind of, like, you know, genetics. You know, they could possibly, you know, travel through space and not feel any kind of gravitational pull, or, you know, they could fly through space, fly through water, fly through air. Who knows? They might be physically capable of doing much more than we can, you know? ever do. But who wants to live like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that becomes exactly like the dichotomy between the two things, right? Like we're people and tentacles are weird, but when you throw all these things together, it may as well be Pennywise it. So whatever.
I don't know. You know, they could be in the majority of the universe. Maybe they're the most dominant species, and they're way ahead of us in every way possible. You know, they've managed to, you know, conquer space, conquer time. And
you know how weird this is? How weird do you want to get, Daryl?
Right?
Maximum weird?
I love getting weird.
I've got maximum weird for you. Okay, check this out. So not only do we have sort of the Lovecraftian aspect, I'm a D&D fan. In Dungeons and Dragons, there's in the lore, there's actually these entities called mind flayers. Okay? Now, mind flayer, of course, is the monster that was in Stranger Things. They called it a mind flayer. Now, a mind flayer is actually these entities from the future that have conquered the past. Okay? And they continually are spawning themselves throughout time. And they have these tentacled faces. They look kind of like, what's that guy from the Johnny Depp flick with the tentacle beard or whatever that guy is? Like, what was that guy's name? Whatever. But they look like that. They look like humanoid entities, but like on their chin, there's like tentacles. Like the bottom half of their face, there's no nose. It's just tentacles from their nose down.
Right.
And they're called mind flayers. And they're exactly as you're describing. They've already conquered the universe, and they're just curating the end by sending their people, their quote people back in time to ensure that end becomes. Anyway, that's how weird. If you want to go check it out, look up a mind flayer from D&D if you want to have nightmares forever. Sorry, go ahead. That's how weird we get.
Okay, sounds great. Sounds good. Yeah, that's pretty frightening. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, how much weirder does that get? And how do you negotiate with one of these things? Not that easy. You need like an 11 ambassador,
or an army of them, I guess. Yeah, totally.
I don't know. They're pretty badass, totally badass. Unbelievable. Yeah. As far as your imagination can take you, it's all possible, in my opinion. If you could think it could happen.
Amen. What's your take on the UFO stuff? Do you give it like more or less credence because it's from 30 years old and George Knapp?
Oh, I don't know. I think they're digging up everything and anything to show that this is going to happen. I think they're talking like, I've been listening to, the people that do all the disclosure stuff, and they said it's already happened. It's just a matter of hearing it come out of a leader's mouth, but they know there's just so much evidence right now and proof that they're saying it's just inevitable. It's going to happen any day, and it'll probably be Trump, because he likes to take credit for everything, I don't know, but that was just what I've been hearing over the chatter here. But they're pretty convinced it's going to happen, and the kids now aren't fazed by it. They're not really impressed. They're like, yeah, whatever,
Yeah, because everything keeps getting more and more absurd. Like literally everything is just more and more absurd. So I kind of don't blame them. I mean, if you're born into hyper reality, you're like, yeah, whatevs. Aliens. That's so 1989. Get over it, guys.
Well, I don't know. If it looks like there's a lot of like people sending in their videos with really amazing looking things that they're seeing in the sky, and it's all over the place, and unless I have an explanation for what they're seeing, I have no idea what these things are. I don't think they're anything we made. And unless the CGI is getting that good, and AI is making really, really strides and bounds, that we're just going to get fooled by anything they put out at us. How do you tell the difference anyway? I have to assume everything is computer generated.
Yeah, like I've been saying, when we bring up AI, and I bring up the idea of make sure you have the armor of God on you. That's what I mean, because everything hyper reality is accelerating, and it means everything you see you should not trust. Okay, look, including me. If you think I'm an AI Mike at this point, I might be. I'm not, but maybe there's a point where I just go eat Cheetos on the couch and just fire up AI Mike to do the show. Okay, I'm not saying I'm gonna, but I'm saying it's in the cards. It's in the cards. Trust nobody. Very X-Files. Trust nobody. Sorry, go ahead.
You're not going to be able to get a human suit to help you with anything. I'm finding it very frustrating to like cancel something that you've signed up for. Cancel your subscription to like your Amazon or your Netflix or whatever. It's hard to get a human. Your dental plan, your insurance. You want to change this. You want to change that. Very difficult to get a person. It's all, how are you going to reason with somebody if they're going to, start to put you on maybe a social credit and you're only being evaluated by the strength of the AI that they programmed to survey you.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult. There's no like getting out of anything.
Yeah.
Even if you have, it was my doppelganger. It wasn't me.
Hey guys, be a good person. One, because it's righteous. Second, because they'll catch you.
Oh, you can't do it. You can't get away with anything. You can't even tell a white lie soon. I don't know.
Here we are. We got about a minute left. If you got any special drum roll style stuff for us.
Oh, I have a silly one. Let's see. If Bruno Mars married Venus Williams on Earth, do you think they'd have a son?
Maybe.
Only it's not finished. That's one of it. Only if they plan it.
Oh, even okay, even better. Sorry about that. I will hopefully edit that to make it better, unless you want to tell it again, and then I'll just.
No problem. No, I don't want to tell it again. It's not that good.
Don't make me do it again, Mike. You're the best. More time if you got anything else? Just the one?
The one now. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I can't remember the other one.
That's okay. We'll circle back around and do it next time. You were the best. Thanks for calling in. Thanks for staying up late with us. Always a pleasure. Have a great night. Daryl in New York. You know you love. We've been a good friend for a long time. The cosmic comic of troubled minds. Final thought, James, and we'll wrap this up.
Great calls from everyone, and thank you for having me on as always, Mike.
Thanks for again with I do hear the hoarse voice now. It might be your new microphone, but nurse that voice back to health, and thanks for being part of this and staying up late. If you want to help the show, you guys know what to do. Help our friends. troubledminds.org/friends. James is there. Daryl's there. The Robert, Night Stalker, many of the people that called in tonight. And if you should be on that list, you should be on that list. It's an in list, not an out list. You let me know. You got a project you're working on, we'll put you on that list. Thank you again for that. Follow Herschel Sterling, by the way. Commercial Herschel. Go check out his blog on Substack. But also, he's got an amazing podcast. Herschel, I'm gonna contact you. We need to put the new stuff you're doing on the radio station too. Let me know if that's in the cards here. But help our friends. That's what this is all about. There's so many great people doing so many amazing ideas and just progressing humanity through conversation, through storytelling, through collaborative ideas. That's what it's always been about. So here we are, sort of taking the campfire aspect of the oral tradition to radio. And I know this is sort of a nostalgic space of ideas, and it feels, so 1995. But that's the point, because you know what? 1995 was a good year. If you want to help us directly, spread the word. Let people know a conversation is happening where we're not going to tell you who to vote for. We're not going to devolve into political narratives. We touch on it sometimes because these things happen in the world around us, but it's just not the focus. And you know why, by the way? Let me explain. I don't have to explain myself because you guys already know, but I'll just say it for the new people, the people that maybe haven't been here for 5 years or whatever, 5+ years, 7 years, 8 years, whatever it is. The reason I don't is because everybody else does. Yes, I have my own political takes. Yes, I could rage like a maniac about how unjust the world is. And you bet your ass it's unjust. But everybody else does that. So why do they need me to do that too? Everybody else is doing a fine job. So if you like that stuff, you know where to find it. It's just not going to be here. Thanks again. I appreciate you guys very much. Thanks for staying up late, caring about the ideas. Thanks for understanding that, well, not everything is perfect. Troubledfans.com, troubledminds.org. Spread the word, listen to the podcast. That's the best way to help. And we'll see you soon. Have a fantastic night. It goes exactly like this as we finish. Be sure. Oh, wait. We got a little bit of time. I'm going to say it. Herschel says, James is going to read some of his fiction on my show. Maybe we can coordinate something. I'll be interviewing him. Sweet. Let me know the date. We'll do the thing, boost the things. Herschel's doing fantastic work. James is doing fantastic. So many people are doing great things, putting out amazing information. Look, that's what this is about. So, yeah. As we finish, it goes exactly like this. Be sure. Be strong. Be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night.